My husband drained our daughter's college fund and vanished with his mistress. I was devastated until our 12-year-old smirked and said, "Mom, don't worry. I handled it." Days later, he called screaming after discovering Mark was stuffing clothes into a suitcase when I walked into our bedroom. No explanation, no eye contact, just frantic packing like the house was on fire. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't even look up. What I should have done years ago. His words hit me with the force of a physical blow. 22 years of marriage, and this was how it ended. Him throwing shirts into luggage while I stood in my pajamas, completely blindsided. "Mark, stop." I grabbed his arm, but he shrugged me off like I was a stranger. "Talk to me. What's happening?" He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there terrified me. Nothing. No guilt, no sadness, no regret. Just cold determination. "I'm leaving, Sarah. Today." Before we continue, I want to thank you for joining me in sharing stories about protecting our families. If you believe children deserve financial security, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach more families who need to hear this. Now let's see what Emma discovered. The room spun around me. This couldn't be real. Yesterday we discussed Emma's college applications over dinner. Yesterday he kissed my forehead and said good night. Yesterday I was a wife, not whatever I was becoming in this moment. Is there someone else? The question fell out of my mouth before I could stop it. Mark paused, a dress shirt halfway into the suitcase. For just a second I thought I saw something flicker across his face. Then it was gone. This isn't about anyone else. This is about me needing to breathe again. But I knew, the way he wouldn't look at me properly, the way his phone had been face down for months, the late meetings that ran later and later. I'd been pushing down these suspicions for so long that they'd become background noise, but now they screamed at me. "Where will you go?" My voice sounded small, pathetic. "I'll figure it out." He zipped the suitcase with finality. "I need you to transfer my half of the savings to my personal account." That's when the real panic set in. Money, Emma's college fund, our joint accounts, everything we'd built together. I ran downstairs, my bare feet slapping against the hardwood floors. Emma looked up from her cereal, concern creasing her 12-year-old face. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetheart. Dad's just going on a trip." The lie tasted bitter. That I grabbed my laptop and logged into our bank account with shaking fingers. The page loaded and I stared at the screen in disbelief. Our checking account showed $247.83. Our savings account showed 0. Emma's college fund, the one we'd been feeding for 12 years, the one that should have had $75,000 in it, showed 0. "No." The word came out as a whisper. "No, no, no." I refreshed the page. The numbers didn't change. I checked the transaction history. 3 days ago, while I was at my book club meeting, Mark had transferred everything. Everything. Not just his half, not just our shared money, but Emma's future. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I called the bank, praying this was some kind of mistake. The customer service representative confirmed what I already knew but couldn't accept. Mark had full access to all accounts. The transfers were legitimate. "Mom." Emma's voice seemed to come from far away. "You're scaring me." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was still in her school uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, her backpack ready by the door. She had no idea that her father had just stolen her future and walked away. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made us both turn. Mark appeared, dragging his suitcase behind him. He walked past us like we were furniture, heading straight for the front door. "That's it." I found my voice, and it was stronger than I expected. 22 years and you're just walking away?" He stopped with his hand on the doorknob. "I left you a voicemail explaining everything." "I don't want a voicemail. I want you to look at your daughter and explain why you're abandoning her." Emma stood up slowly from the breakfast table. She didn't cry, didn't run to him, didn't beg him to stay. She just watched him with those intelligent eyes that were so much like his. Mark glanced at Emma for maybe 3 seconds. "You'll understand when you're older," he said to her. Then he looked at me. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." The door closed behind him with a quiet click that somehow sounded louder than if he'd slammed it. Emma and I stood in the sudden silence of our kitchen. The coffee maker gurgled. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car engine started and pulled away. "Is he coming back?" Emma asked. That I wanted to lie to protect her, to say that Daddy just needed some time. But looking at her face, I realized she already knew the answer. I don't think so, baby. She nodded, processing this information the way she processed everything else in her life, with careful consideration. Did he take our money? The question caught me off guard. Some of it, I said carefully. My college fund, too. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Emma picked up her cereal bowl and walked it to the sink. She rinsed it out, dried it, and put it away in the cabinet. Then she turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before on her young face. Mom, don't worry. I handled it. The words were so unexpected, so calmly delivered that I almost laughed. Handled what? She was 12 years old. What could she possibly have handled? But something in her tone made me pause. There was no childish bravado, no empty comfort, just quiet confidence, like she knew something I didn't. What do you mean, sweetheart? Emma picked up her backpack and headed toward the door. I'll miss my bus if I don't leave now. We'll talk after school, okay? And then she was gone, leaving me alone in a house that suddenly felt enormous and empty, with questions I couldn't answer and a future I couldn't see. The house felt different that first week without Mark. Not just empty but watchful somehow. I found myself crying at random moments, folding his abandoned laundry, seeing his coffee mug still in the dishwasher, hearing Emma's alarm clock through the walls each morning. But Emma, she moved through our shattered world like nothing had changed. Every morning at 7:15, she'd appear in the kitchen fully dressed, backpack organized, lunch packed. She'd kiss my cheek and say, "Have a good day, Mom," in the same cheerful tone she'd used when we were still a complete family. It was unsettling. Are you okay, sweetheart? I asked one morning, catching her wrist gently as she headed for the door. She looked at me with those serious dark eyes. I'm fine, Mom. Are you? I wasn't fine. I was falling apart piece by piece, but I couldn't tell her that. Just checking on you. I know. She squeezed my hand. But I'm really okay. That evening, I decided to call my sister Janet for advice. As I dialed, I could hear Emma upstairs in her room. The sound drifted down through the floorboards, rapid clicking, like she was typing frantically. I assumed she was chatting with friends about the situation, maybe processing her feelings online the way kids do now. Sarah, how are you holding up? Janet's voice was warm with concern. I don't know, I admitted, sinking onto the couch. Emma's being so strong, but I'm worried she's bottling everything up. She hasn't cried once. Some kids process differently, Janet reminded me. Remember when Dad left? You cried for weeks, but I got angry and broke Mom's favorite vase. The clicking upstairs stopped suddenly, then resumed with even more intensity. What's that sound? Janet asked. Emma's on her computer, I replied. Probably homework or games. But even as I said it, something nagged at me. The rhythm was too consistent, too purposeful for games. After I hung up with Janet, I made Emma's favorite dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup. I knocked on her door around 6:30. Come in, she called as I pushed the door open, carrying her dinner tray. Emma was sitting at her desk, her laptop screen angled away from me. She closed it quickly when I entered. Brought you some food, honey. Thanks, Mom. She took the tray without making eye contact. You can set it on my nightstand. As I placed the tray down, I glanced at her desk. Scattered papers, her school planner, a few textbooks, nothing unusual. But there was something deliberate about how she'd positioned everything, like she'd arranged it specifically for my visit. What were you working on? I asked casually. History report on the Industrial Revolution. She opened her laptop again, but I caught a glimpse of the screen before she minimized whatever she'd been viewing. It looked like an email program, not a school document. Need any help? I'm good. Thanks for dinner. I was dismissed, politely but firmly. I kissed the top of her head and left, but the uneasy feeling lingered. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Emma maintained her perfect routine while I spiraled deeper into confusion and grief. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with panic attacks, checking our bank accounts obsessively, calling Mark's number just to hear his voicemail. Meanwhile, Emma would emerge each morning looking rested and composed. The typing continued every night. Sometimes it went on until nearly midnight. Friday evening, I was putting away Emma's clean laundry when I saw it, a single sheet of paper on her desk, partially hidden under her science textbook. I shouldn't have looked, but something about the formatting caught my eye. It was a printed email thread. The names at the top made my blood freeze. Mark and Rebecca. My hand shook as I pulled the paper out. The messages were dated from 3 weeks ago, before Mark left. They were discussing meeting times, hotel reservations, and something about handling Sarah when the time came. I sat down hard on Emma's bed, staring at the evidence in my hands. My 12-year-old daughter had somehow accessed her father's private emails. How was that even possible? Mom. Emma's voice from the doorway made me jump. She stood there holding her empty dinner plate, looking at me with those calm, assessing eyes. No panic, no embarrassment at being caught, just quiet observation. Emma, where did this come from? She set her plate down and closed her bedroom door behind her. Dad's not very good with passwords. How did you? I started then stopped. How long have you known about Rebecca? 6 weeks. About the money? I figured that out the day before he left. 6 weeks. My voice cracked. While I'd been blissfully unaware, my child had been living with this knowledge. I felt sick. Why didn't you tell me? Emma sat beside me on the bed, suddenly looking more like the 12-year-old she actually was. I wanted to be sure, and I wanted to figure out what to do about it. Honey, this isn't your responsibility. Yes, it is. Her voice was firm. He stole my college fund. He lied to both of us. Someone had to do something. I looked around her room with new eyes. Everything seemed different now, her organized desk, her careful routine, her unnatural calm. What else do you know? Emma got up and pulled a spiral notebook from under her mattress. She handed it to me without hesitation. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, printed screenshots, diagrams I couldn't understand, and lists of numbers that might have been phone numbers or account information. Emma, what is all this? Research. She sat back down beside me. Dad thinks he's smart, but he's careless. He uses the same password for everything. He doesn't clear his browser history. He doesn't even log out of his accounts when he's done. I flipped through page after page of meticulous documentation, financial records, text message screenshots, what looked like travel itineraries. My daughter had been conducting surveillance on her own father. I struggled for words. This is incredible and terrifying. I learned most of it from YouTube tutorials, she said simply. Computer security is really interesting once you understand the basics. Emma, this kind of thing, hacking into someone's accounts, it's not legal. She looked at me with an expression far too mature for her age. Neither is stealing $75,000 from your daughter's college fund. The matter-of-fact way she said it sent chills down my spine. This wasn't my little girl anymore. This was someone I didn't fully recognize. Someone calculating, focused, and completely unafraid. What are you planning to do with all this information? Emma took the notebook back and closed it carefully. I'm still working on that part. But don't worry, Mom. I've got this handled. There it was again, that phrase. The same words she'd said the morning her father walked out of our lives. But now they carried a weight that made me realize I might not know my own daughter at all. I opened the notebook Emma had given me. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, printed screenshots, diagrams I couldn't understand, and lists of numbers that might have been phone numbers or account information. Emma, what is all this? Research. She sat back down beside me. Dad thinks he's smart, but he's careless. He uses the same password for everything. He doesn't clear his browser history. He doesn't even log out of his accounts when he's done. I flipped through page after page of meticulous documentation, financial records, text message screenshots, what looked like travel itineraries. My daughter had been conducting surveillance on her own father. I struggled for words. This is incredible and terrifying. I learned most of it from YouTube tutorials, she said calmly. Computer security is really interesting once you understand the basics. Emma, this kind of thing, hacking into someone's accounts, it's not legal. She looked at me with an expression far too mature for her age. Neither is stealing $75,000 from your daughter's college fund. The matter-of-fact way she said it sent chills down my spine. This wasn't my little girl anymore. This was someone I didn't fully recognize. Someone calculating, focused, and completely unafraid. What are you planning to do with all this information? Emma took the notebook back and closed it carefully. I'm still working on that part. But don't worry, Mom. I've got this handled. There it was again, those same words. Handled. Show me everything. I said, my voice barely steady. Emma hesitated for the first time since this nightmare began. Mom, some of it's pretty bad. Show me. She opened her laptop and pulled up a folder labeled Science Fair Project. Inside were dozens of subfolders with names like financial records, communication logs, and identity theft evidence, and my stomach clenched. It started with Dad's second phone, Emma explained, clicking on a folder. He thought he hid it in his closet, but I saw him checking it one night when he thought I was asleep. The screen filled with photographs Emma had taken through Mark's bedroom door, blurry but clear enough to show him texting on a device I'd never seen before. I waited until he left it charging in his office one day. I only had maybe 10 minutes, but I got into his messages. Emma's fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. That's how I found Rebecca. A new window opened, screenshot after screenshot of text conversations. My husband's words to another woman, talking about me like I was an obstacle to remove, planning their future together, discussing how to handle the Sarah situation without losing too much money in a divorce. I felt like I might throw up. But it gets worse, Mom. Emma clicked to another folder. Rebecca Sterling works at Dad's accounting firm. She handles client investments and trust accounts. You found out where she works? I asked, barely able to breathe. I found out everything about her. Address, family, work history, credit score, even her Netflix password. Emma's voice was matter of fact, like she was discussing a school assignment. She's been stealing money from her clients for 2 years. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank transfer records showing money moving from client accounts into personal ones. Fake invoices for services never provided. Investment statements that didn't match actual balances. Emma had somehow accessed Rebecca's work computer and documented everything. Emma, how did you even get into their systems? Rebecca uses the same password for everything. Sterling 2011. That's her last name and the year she graduated college. I found that information on her LinkedIn profile. Emma shrugged like it was obvious. People are really predictable with passwords. I stared at my daughter, this stranger sitting beside me. But how did you learn to do all this? YouTube mostly, she said simply. And some computer programming forums. There's a lot of information out there if you know how to look for it. She clicked to yet another folder, and my world tilted sideways again. Bank statements with my name on them, but accounts I'd never opened. Credit applications filed under Emma's social security number. Loan documents signed with forged signatures. Mom, Emma said quietly, Dad didn't just take our money. He's been using our identities to get loans. What? The word came out as a whisper. The $75,000 from my college fund, that was just the down payment on a $200,000 loan he took out in my name. What? My voice cracked. He and Rebecca are buying a house together in Florida. They used my credit history and your employment information to secure the mortgage. Emma's jaw tightened. They were going to disappear and leave us holding the debt. The room spun around me. Identity theft. Fraud. My husband hadn't just abandoned us. He'd systematically destroyed our financial future to build a new life with his mistress. But here's the thing, Emma continued, and I heard something new in her voice, something cold and satisfied. I caught them before they could complete the purchase. She opened another folder labeled Countermeasures. Inside were dozens of official-looking documents, fraud reports filed with credit agencies, complaints submitted to banking authorities, anonymous tips sent to Rebecca's employer. I've been working on this for 3 weeks, Emma explained. I documented everything first, then I started dismantling their plans piece by piece. What do you mean? Well, Emma said evenly, Rebecca got suspended from work yesterday. Her boss received an anonymous email with all the evidence of her embezzlement. Her clients are pulling their accounts. The state board is launching an investigation. My mouth fell open. You did that. She stole money from elderly people saving for retirement. Mom, she deserved it. Emma's voice was steady, righteous. And that's just the beginning. She showed me more files. Credit agencies had frozen the fraudulent accounts opened in our names. The mortgage application for the Florida house had been flagged and denied. Rebecca's landlord had received a tip about illegal activity in her apartment and started eviction proceedings. But the best part, Emma said, clicking to a final folder, is what I sent to her father. Her father. Dr. Robert Sterling, Emma said, He's a prominent surgeon who's very concerned about his family's reputation. He received a very detailed letter about his daughter's criminal activities, along with copies of all the evidence. I felt dizzy. Emma, what have you done? I've protected us. She closed the laptop and looked at me directly. Dad thought he could steal from us and walk away clean. He thought we'd be too broken and stupid to fight back. Her eyes glinted with quiet fury. He was wrong. The best part, Emma said, clicking to a final folder, is what I sent to her father. Her father. Dr. Robert Sterling, Emma said. He's a prominent surgeon who's very concerned about his family's reputation. He received a very detailed letter about his daughter's criminal activities, along with copies of all the evidence. I felt dizzy. Emma, what have you done? I've protected us. She closed the laptop and looked at me directly. Dad thought he could steal from us and walk away clean. He thought we'd be too broken and stupid to fight back. She took a deep breath. He was wrong. That night I barely slept. My mind was racing with everything I'd learned. Fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, words I never thought would touch our lives. Emma had built a digital fortress around us while I'd been sitting on the couch crying. When I asked what happened next, she said simply, "Now we wait." Rebecca's world was already falling apart, but Mark didn't know that yet. He thought he had escaped. Emma was certain that once he realized the walls were closing in, panic would do the rest. For days we waited. On a Tuesday afternoon, the phone rang, the caller ID flashed his name, Mark Patterson. My heart lurched. I was in the kitchen washing dishes, my hands still wet when I grabbed the phone. "Hello." My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Sarah." His tone was tight, strained, nothing like the man who had walked out on us. "We need to talk. Something very strange is happening." I glanced toward the living room where Emma was sitting with her homework. "What kind of strange?" "My bank called this morning. All my accounts have been flagged for suspicious activity. They've frozen everything pending some kind of federal review." His words came fast, breathless. "And Rebecca lost her job yesterday. Security escorted her out of the building." Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing her school uniform. She poured herself a glass of water and listened without a word. "I don't understand what that has to do with me," I said carefully. "It's too much of a coincidence." Mark snapped. "First Rebecca gets fired for some bogus embezzlement claim. Now my finances are under investigation. Someone's targeting us, Sarah. Someone with serious technical skills." Emma set her glass down, moved to the kitchen table, and opened her laptop. Her fingers began to fly over the keys, calm and precise. "Who would do something like that?" I asked, though my stomach already twisted with suspicion. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. Rebecca thinks it might be someone from her office, maybe a coworker she rejected or—" Mark stopped mid-sentence. "What was that sound?" "What sound?" I asked. There was a beep like someone just accessed my email. I looked at Emma. She had just pressed a key. A soft chime had echoed faintly through the speaker. Mark's voice rose in alarm. "Sarah, someone's in my computer right now. I can see my email opening and closing in real time. Someone's reading my messages while we're talking." Emma didn't even flinch. Her screen reflected in her glasses. Email interfaces, document folders, data streams scrolling across the display. "Mark," I said carefully, "maybe you should hang up and call your bank." "No, wait." His voice was panicked. "I need to ask you something directly. Did you hire someone? A private investigator or computer expert? Because if you did, you need to call them off right now. What they're doing is illegal." Emma looked up and met my eyes. She gave a small shake of her head, then went back to typing. "I didn't hire anyone," I said truthfully. "Then who?" Mark's voice broke. In the background I could hear frantic typing on his end. "Someone just sent an email from my account to my boss. Sarah, they're impersonating me right now." "What did the email say?" I don't know. Everything's happening too fast. My inbox is flooding. Wait. Oh God, now they're in my social media accounts. They're posting things, financial documents, private messages between me and Rebecca." Emma minimized one window and opened another. I caught a glimpse of social media profiles, document uploads, and screenshots flashing across her screen before she angled it away from me. "Mark, you need to contact the police if someone's hacking your accounts." "You think I haven't tried?" His breathing was ragged now. The police said if the information being posted is true, then it's not harassment, it's whistleblowing. But how would anyone have access to true financial documents unless they were? He stopped abruptly. The silence on the line was deafening. Unless they were inside my actual accounts, he finished weakly. The realization hit him mid-sentence. Someone wasn't posting fake information about him. Someone was posting real evidence of his crimes. Sarah, he said, his voice breaking, I need you to understand something. The money I took, I was planning to pay it back. Rebecca and I were going to make it work, and then I was going to quietly replace everything. Nobody was supposed to get hurt. I stood there in the kitchen, gripping the phone, watching my 12-year-old daughter dismantle her father's digital life with the precision of a surgeon. But you did take it, I said quietly. You took Emma's money, our money. As a loan, he insisted. Rebecca had this investment opportunity that was guaranteed to double our money within 6 months. We were going to surprise you and Emma with even more than what was originally there. Emma looked up briefly, her expression unreadable. Not anger, not sorrow, just pure calculation. Mark, that's not how loans work, I said. You can't take someone else's money without permission and call it a loan. You don't understand the pressure I was under, he said desperately. Rebecca's father was threatening to cut her off financially if she didn't prove she could support herself. She needed that money to buy the house, to show him she was serious about building a future. So you stole our daughter's college fund to impress your girlfriend's father? It wasn't stealing, Mark said, his voice cracking. It was an investment in all of our futures. Rebecca's family has connections. Once her father accepted her choices, he was going to help me start my own firm. We would have been wealthy, Sarah. Wealthy enough to pay for Emma's college 10 times over. Emma closed her laptop with a quiet snap. She stood up and walked over to me. She held out her hand. Mom, may I? I handed her the phone. Hi, Dad, she said, her voice perfectly calm. Emma, sweetheart, thank God. Listen, someone's doing terrible things to me and Rebecca. They're making us look like criminals. You have to tell your mother that I would never steal from you. Never. But you did steal from me, Emma said. Her tone remained conversational, almost gentle. You took $75,000 from my college account and used it as collateral for a mortgage application in Florida. There was silence on the other end of the line, 10 long seconds of it. Emma, who told you that? Nobody told me. I found out myself. The kitchen was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Emma's voice didn't tremble once. I found the forged loan documents. You used my social security number to secure additional credit. That's impossible, Mark sputtered. You're 12 years old, you couldn't possibly understand. I understand that you committed identity theft, Emma said evenly. I understand that Rebecca embezzled money from her clients. And I understand that you both plan to disappear to Florida and leave Mom and me responsible for the debt you created. Mark's breathing grew uneven. Emma, what have you done? I've been watching you for weeks, she said simply. Her calm was absolute. Emma, what have you done? Mark's voice trembled through the phone. It means, she said calmly, that I know about the second phone you thought you hid so well. I know about the fake investment accounts Rebecca created to hide the money she stole. I know about the house you tried to buy using my identity. Emma's voice never wavered. And I know that when the money ran out and Rebecca got fired, she stopped returning your calls. There was a sharp intake of breath on his end of the line. How could you possibly know about Rebecca not returning my calls? Because I'm monitoring all your communications. I've been watching both of you destroy yourselves piece by piece. Emma sat down at the kitchen table, still holding the phone with perfect composure. Rebecca blocked your number yesterday after her father cut her off financially. She's already started dating someone else. The sound that came through the phone was somewhere between a sob and a scream. Emma, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm still your father. I love you. I love your mother. I never meant for things to go this far. You chose her over us, Dad, Emma said. Her voice remained steady, factual. You chose money over your family. You chose to steal my future to pay for your new life. Emma, Mark begged. I'm begging you, whatever you've done, whatever you know, please just stop. I have nothing left. I'm living in my car because I can't pass a credit check to rent an apartment. I can't get a job because every background check shows financial fraud flags. Please. Emma looked at me as she spoke her final words to her father. You taught me something important, Dad. You taught me that the people who are supposed to protect you sometimes don't. So you have to protect yourself. And with that, she hung up. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma set the phone on the counter and looked at me with those calm, serious eyes. He won't call back, she said matter-of-factly. How do you know? I whispered. Because now he knows I'm watching, she said softly. And he knows that every move he makes, I'll see coming. She picked up her laptop and headed toward her room. I have homework to finish. I stood alone in my kitchen, finally understanding that my 12-year-old daughter had just systematically dismantled a grown man's entire life, and that he deserved every second of it. The house felt impossibly quiet after she left the room. I stared at the phone still lying on the counter, the conversation echoing in my head like a ghost. My daughter had just destroyed her father with the same calm precision most kids use to complete homework assignments. The silence felt heavy, almost suffocating. Part of me wanted to feel guilty. Part of me wanted to march into Emma's room and demand she undo whatever digital warfare she'd unleashed. But a larger part of me, a part one wasn't sure I recognized, felt fierce pride that my 12-year-old had protected us when I couldn't protect myself. The next morning, Emma appeared at breakfast looking exactly like any other middle schooler getting ready for her day. She ate her cereal, checked her backpack, and kissed my cheek goodbye as if she hadn't spent the previous evening systematically destroying two adults' lives. Emma, wait, I called, catching her arm gently as she headed for the door. Are you okay? She tilted her head, considering the question with that serious expression I'd grown to know so well. I'm fine, Mom. Why wouldn't I be? Because of what happened yesterday. With your father. What about it? Her complete lack of emotional response unnerved me. Honey, you just had a very intense conversation with Dad. It's normal to feel upset or confused or... I'm not upset. Emma adjusted her backpack straps. I'm relieved. Now he knows that I know what he did, and he knows there are consequences for stealing from his family. But don't you miss him? Even a little. Emma paused at the front door, her hand on the doorknob. I miss the dad I thought he was. But that person was never real, was he? He was just a character Dad played when it was convenient. The matter-of-fact way she analyzed her own feelings terrified me. Where was the anger, the hurt, the desperate hope that maybe Daddy would apologize and come home? Emma, I said softly, I think it would be good for you to talk to someone, a counselor who can help you work through these big emotions. I'm not having big emotions, Mom. I'm having appropriate emotions. She opened the door. But if it makes you feel better, I don't mind talking to someone. The door closed behind her, and I stood there, feeling both awe and fear. My daughter was 12 years old, and she had just dismantled the man who raised her. She had done what I couldn't. After Emma left for school, I stood in the kitchen, still frozen in place. My daughter had just destroyed her father with calm precision, and I couldn't decide whether to be horrified or proud that night. As I lay in bed, the events replayed in my head again and again. Mark's desperate voice, Emma's steady tone, the quiet finality of that click when she hung up. By morning, I had made up my mind to check on her. At tea breakfast, Emma appeared exactly as she always did, calm, organized, every strand of hair in place. She poured cereal, packed her lunch, and checked her phone like nothing had happened. Emma, wait, I said, catching her arm gently. Are you okay? She looked at me with that same serene expression. I'm fine, Mom. Why wouldn't I be? Because of what happened yesterday, with your father. What about it? She asked simply. You just had a very intense conversation, sweetheart. It's normal to feel upset or confused or angry. I'm not upset, she said, tightening her backpack straps. I'm relieved. Now he knows that I know what he did, and he knows there are consequences for stealing from his family. But don't you miss him? Even a little. Emma paused, her hand on the doorknob. I miss the dad I thought he was. But that person was never real, was he? He was just a character Dad played when it was convenient. Her tone was analytical, not bitter. Emma, I said softly, I think it would be good for you to talk to someone. A counselor who can help you work through these big emotions. I'm not having big emotions, Mom. I'm having appropriate emotions, she said calmly. But if it makes you feel better, I don't mind talking to someone. After she left for school, I called our pediatrician's office. Dr. Martinez recommended a child psychologist named Dr. Patricia Reeves, who specialized in family trauma and gifted children. Gifted children often process difficult situations differently than their peers, Dr. Martinez explained. They might intellectualize emotions rather than feeling them in traditional ways. Dr. Reeves could see Emma the following week. In the meantime, I found myself studying my daughter like she was a puzzle I needed to solve. She maintained her normal routine: school, homework, helping with dinner. But there were subtle changes I hadn't noticed before. She'd taken over our household finances completely, creating detailed spreadsheets that tracked our reduced income and projected our expenses for the next year. She had researched legal aid services and compiled a folder of information about divorce proceedings and asset recovery. "Mom, you need to file for divorce immediately," she told me one evening while I was paying bills at the kitchen table. "Every day you wait gives Dad more time to hide assets or create additional debt in your name. Emma, these are grown-up concerns. You don't need to worry about them." "Someone has to," she said firmly, sitting across from me. "You're depressed, which is understandable but not productive right now." "I'm not depressed, so I can think clearly about what needs to happen next." Her clinical assessment of my mental state stung, mostly because it was accurate. I had been wallowing, hoping somehow this nightmare would resolve itself. Emma, meanwhile, was the only one taking concrete steps to secure our future. When the day of her appointment arrived, Dr. Reeves's office was decorated in soothing blues and greens, with children's artwork covering one wall. I expected Emma to be nervous about her first therapy session, but she walked in as if attending a business meeting. "Emma, I'm Dr. Reeves," the therapist said gently. "Your mom thought it might be helpful for us to chat about some of the changes happening in your family." "That's fine," Emma replied. "I understand this is probably mandatory after what I did to my father." Dr. Reeves blinked, clearly not expecting such directness from a 12-year-old. "Can you tell me about that?" For the next 45 minutes, Emma calmly explained the entire situation. She described discovering Mark's affair, documenting his financial crimes, and systematically dismantling his and Rebecca's lives. She spoke without visible emotion, presenting facts as if giving a school presentation. "How did that make you feel?" Dr. Reeves asked. "Satisfied," Emma replied immediately. "He stole from me, so I made sure there were consequences. It felt like justice." "Do you ever feel sad about your father leaving?" "I feel sad that he chose to become the kind of person who steals from his own child," Emma said. "But I don't feel sad about him facing the results of that choice." When the session ended, Dr. Reeves asked to speak with me privately while Emma waited in the lobby. "Mrs. Patterson," she began carefully, "your daughter is remarkable. Her cognitive abilities are exceptional, and her emotional resilience is extraordinary. But is it healthy?" I asked. "Should a child be able to do what she did without feeling guilty or traumatized?" Dr. Reeves folded her hands. "Trauma responses vary widely, especially in highly intelligent children. Emma has experienced significant betrayal and abandonment, but she's processed it in a remarkably functional way." She leaned forward. "Some children fall apart when faced with this level of family dysfunction. Others, particularly those with strong analytical skills, respond by taking control of their environment." "So she's okay?" "She's more than okay. She's adapted," Dr. Reeves said softly. "The question is whether you're comfortable with who she's becoming." That evening, I found Emma in her room again, working at her desk. When I looked over her shoulder, I expected to see hacking tools or surveillance files, but instead it was a Word document titled "Digital Safety for Families: Warning Signs and Protection Strategies." "What's this, sweetheart?" I asked. "I'm writing a guide for other kids whose parents might be stealing from them," she said, "and for adults who don't know how to spot financial fraud." She scrolled down the document to show me detailed sections about password security, recognizing forged documents, and protecting personal information. The document was sophisticated, clearly written, and incredibly thorough. "My 13-year-old daughter is writing a cybersecurity handbook," I whispered. "Emma, this is incredible. Where did you learn to write like this?" "I've been researching family financial fraud for weeks," she said. "You'd be surprised how common it is." She saved the document, then added, "Mrs. Henderson at school asked me to present this to the PTA next month. Apparently, 3 other families in our district have discovered similar problems with missing money and identity theft. I stared at her, speechless. She wasn't just surviving what Mark had done to us, she was transforming it into something that could protect others. I've been researching family financial fraud for weeks, Emma said. You'd be surprised how common it is. She saved the document. Mrs. Henderson at school asked me to present this to the PTA next month. Apparently, 3 other families in our district have discovered similar problems with missing money and identity theft. I stared at the screen, reading her clear, practical advice. She wasn't just surviving what Mark had done to us. She was transforming it into something that could protect others. How do you feel about presenting this to adults? I asked. Nervous but excited, she admitted. Most people don't understand how easy it is to protect yourself if you just know what to look for. She closed her laptop and looked at me seriously. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you ashamed of what I did to Dad? The question caught me completely off guard. Ashamed? Amy, you saved us. You protected our family when I couldn't. But you've been looking at me differently lately, she said quietly, like you're worried about me. I sat on her bed, choosing my words carefully. I'm not worried about what you did, sweetheart. I'm worried about what it cost you. What you accomplished was amazing, but it required you to become someone harder than any child should have to be. Do you think I'm damaged? She asked softly. No, I said immediately. I think you're stronger than I ever imagined possible. But I also think that strength came with a price, and I want to make sure you're okay with who you're becoming. Emma leaned against me, and for a moment she felt like my little girl again instead of the formidable person she'd become. I don't feel damaged, Mom. I feel like I finally understand how the world really works. And understanding something means you can protect yourself from it. What about protecting others? I asked gently. That's why I'm writing the guide, she said. If I can help other families avoid what we went through, then maybe something good came from Dad's choices. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she asked one final question that broke my heart and filled me with pride at the same time. Do you think Dad ever really loved us? I think he loved the idea of us, I said quietly. But when loving us became inconvenient, he chose himself instead. That's what I thought too. She pulled her stuffed elephant closer. Good night, Mom. Good night, sweetheart. I turned off her light and stood in the hallway, processing everything Dr. Reeves had said. Maybe Emma wasn't broken. Maybe she was exactly what she needed to be to thrive in a world where people you trust could betray you completely. Maybe I wasn't raising a damaged child. Maybe I was raising an extraordinary young woman who would use her strength to protect others the way she protected us. 6 months later, I was stacking books in the children's section of Millburg Community Library when my supervisor approached with a nervous expression. Sarah, there's a reporter here asking about your daughter, Linda whispered, glancing toward the front desk where a woman in a pressed suit waited with a notepad. My heart stopped. What kind of reporter? She says she's investigating the Rebecca Sterling embezzlement case. Apparently, someone tipped her off that the anonymous whistleblower might be connected to our area. I walked to the front desk on unsteady legs. The reporter smiled professionally and extended her hand. Mrs. Patterson, I'm Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. I'm doing a follow-up story on the Sterling financial fraud scandal. I understand your ex-husband was involved. I can't comment on that, I said quickly. The story has gained national attention, the reporter continued. Rebecca Sterling is facing federal charges, and several other victims have come forward. Someone was incredibly thorough in documenting the crimes. We'd love to thank whoever provided the evidence. After she left, I drove home to our small apartment across town, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Emma was at the kitchen table doing homework when I walked in. There was a reporter at the library today asking about the Rebecca Sterling case, I said carefully. Emma didn't look up from her math worksheet. They'll never connect it to me. I use 7 different proxy servers and cryptocurrency payments for all the anonymous accounts. Emma? It's fine, Mom, she interrupted. She's good. The more attention the case gets, the more other victims will come forward. She finished a problem and moved to the next one. I've been monitoring the news coverage. 12 other families have contacted authorities about Rebecca's fraudulent investment schemes. The casual way she discussed her nationwide impact on financial crime investigations still caught me off guard. My daughter had triggered a federal investigation that was now protecting dozens of families, and she talked about it like a successful science project. 3 weeks later, Emma received an email that changed everything. A technology company called Secure Family had somehow identified her real identity and wanted to offer her a position in their youth development program. They're offering me a full scholarship to any college I want, Emma explained, showing me the official letter on her laptop, plus a guaranteed job after graduation. Starting salary would be $120,000 a year. I stared at the numbers on the screen. Emma, this is incredible. This could set you up for life. I know. She closed the laptop without hesitation. I'm turning it down. What? Why? Because they want to own what I create, she said. They want me to build security software that makes money off people's fear instead of actually protecting them. She stood up and walked to the window of our small living room. Besides, she added, I already have a job. What do you mean? Emma pulled a business card from her backpack. It looked professionally designed. Patterson, Family Financial Protection Consultant. I've been helping families secure their finances and recover from fraud for the past month, she explained. I have 6 regular clients now, and they pay me $75 an hour for consultations. I took the card, staring at the clean design and professional contact information. Emma, you're 13 years old. How are you running a consulting business? Age doesn't matter when you're working online, she said simply. My clients think I'm an adult cybersecurity expert with a specialty in family protection. She pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop showing her income. I've made enough to replace most of my college fund already. The numbers were staggering. In just 1 month, my teenage daughter had earned more than I made in 3 months at the library. What kind of services do you provide? I asked, still stunned. I help families identify financial red flags, secure their digital accounts, and recover stolen money. Last week, I helped a family in Ohio get back $30,000 their son had stolen from his grandmother's retirement account. Is it legal? I asked cautiously. Everything I do is completely legal, she said firmly. I teach people how to protect themselves and help them file appropriate reports with authorities when crimes have been committed. Emma minimized the spreadsheet. I'm also speaking at a cybersecurity conference next month. As yourself. As Drive Patterson, Family Protection Specialist, she said with a small smile. I'll participate via encrypted video conference, so my age won't be an issue. That evening, after she went to bed, I sat alone with her business card in my hand. My daughter, 12 now 13, had turned her father's betrayal into a mission that was changing lives. And she was doing it all behind a mask of anonymity. That evening, I found myself reading about the Rebecca Sterling case online. The story had indeed gone viral, shared across multiple social media platforms and covered by national news outlets. The comments ranged from outrage about the fraud to praise for the anonymous hero who had exposed the scheme. One comment thread caught my attention. Dozens of people sharing their own experiences with family financial betrayal, parents stealing from children, spouses hiding assets, relatives exploiting elderly family members. Emma's actions had opened a floodgate of similar stories. Nobody suspected the whistleblower was a 12-year-old girl. 2 months into our new life, Emma asked me a question that stopped me cold. Mom, do you think Dad ever regrets what he did? We were washing dishes together after dinner, and I nearly dropped the plate I was holding. It was the first time she'd mentioned Mark in weeks. I don't know, sweetheart. Why do you ask? I've been monitoring his social media accounts, she said evenly. He posts about starting over and making better choices, but he never mentions us. She dried a glass with careful precision. I was wondering if he realizes what he lost. What do you think? I asked quietly. Emma considered this for a long moment. I think regret is just feeling sorry for yourself when you face consequences. It's not the same as understanding why what you did was wrong. Do you want him to regret it? No, she said simply. I want him to understand it. But I don't think he's capable of that level of self-awareness. She folded the dish towel neatly and hung it on its hook. The conversation was clearly over for her, filed away like everything else related to her father. Spring arrived with a warmth that felt like hope. Emma's consulting business continued to grow, and she'd started creating free educational resources for families to protect themselves from financial fraud. She developed security checklists, warning sign guides, and step-by-step instructions for reporting different types of financial crimes. I want to turn this into a non-profit when I turn 18, she told me one evening while working on her latest project. Something that provides free protection services to families who can't afford private consultants. That's a beautiful goal, Emma. It started because of what Dad did to us, she said, her voice calm. But it's become something bigger. There are so many families out there being victimized by people they trust. One evening in late spring, I was reading in the living room when I heard Emma on a video call in her room. I paused outside her door listening to her gentle voice. I know it's scary discovering that your mother has been using your college fund, she was saying, but you're going to be okay. I'm going to help you protect what's left and make sure this doesn't happen again. I realized she was talking to another teenager, probably someone whose family was being destroyed the same way ours had been. The most important thing to remember, Emma continued, is that this isn't your fault. Adults are supposed to protect children, not steal from them. When they don't do their job, we have to protect ourselves. I walked away from her door with tears in my eyes, not from sadness but from overwhelming pride. Mark had tried to break us, but instead, he had forged something unbreakable. Emma had transformed her pain into purpose, her trauma into a mission to protect other families. The next morning, Emma appeared at breakfast looking like any other 8th grader. But I knew better now. Underneath that normal teenage exterior was someone extraordinary. Someone who'd taken the worst thing that had ever happened to her and turned it into a force for good. Ready for school? I asked, kissing her forehead. Always, she said, shouldering her backpack. Oh, and Mom, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. As I watched her walk to the bus stop, I realized that Mark's betrayal hadn't destroyed our family. It had revealed what we were truly made of. Emma had won more than justice. She had won her future, and she was using it to secure the futures of countless other families. Mark could keep his new life. Whatever remained of it, we'd built something infinitely more valuable from the pieces he'd left behind. We'd built hope. And Emma was sharing it with the world. If this story of a 12-year-old's digital justice had you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Emma calmly told her father, "You chose her, so live with her," before hanging up. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more incredible family protection stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.